Hi comic fans, thanks for tuning in. I know it's been a while. I won't make any excuses and I won't make any promises anymore. This is how it is. Um, First, I want to thank all of you who bought comics from me. I did a comic sale recently and I asked you to subscribe to my newsletter. Quite a lot did, and I sold a good amount. It wasn't like the perfect amount, but I was really content with the sale, how it went on, and so for all of you who bought from me and supported this channel and myself, thank you very much appreciated. And for all the people who don't know what I'm talking about, you can subscribe to a newsletter, and every 2 to 3 months I will do a comic sale. A lot of omnibuses, absolute editions, hardcovers, really nice stuff, high quality comics, and you will get it much cheaper than Amazon and co, so you can buy that, support the channel, support me as a content producer. And yeah, I will put a link in the video description. So yeah, having said that, let's get on to the reviews. I have here a stable of books. I've fallen a bit out of, not of love, but like a little bit out of interest with superhero stuff and comics in general. I have to admit, I read a lot of other stuff, but yeah, I picked up my new books and it was very pleasant to read them. There were quite a few surprises and really good things. So yeah, I got sucked back into the comic game, and not everything's a hit. I will talk about the books in order of publishers, and first up we have Bankshot #1 by Dark Horse Comics, and it's written by Alex de Campi and drawn by Chris Cross. I have forgotten that I have ordered this book. It's a political action book, very, from like, not necessarily story-wise, but the feel that it has is very close to Mayday, the miniseries that she did for Image Comics, and it's about a hotshot named Bankshot, and he can do stuff. He's like super clever and super able, and frankly, I'm not really, I don't really get what the story is about, and it was with the same with when Mayday, that you need a few issues to really get into the whole thinking of Alex de Campi, and I guess with #2 we'll find out what this is really about. Right now it's, like I said, a well done action book. It's not bad, but you know, there are so many characters and so many hints and so many different settings. I really couldn't get into it. Alright, next up, Black Hammer. I read #9 and 10, and I loved #10, the recent one. It's really fun. It's one of my favorite series. It's superheroes without superheroics. It's just an action-less superhero book. It's all about the relationships between the characters and their backstories and their psyches, and how they're dealing with the fact that they're trapped in a foreign world they don't understand. And yeah, it's a beautiful book. It's also drawn by Dean Ostrom, an artist who I really enjoy. And there was this guest penciler here, David Rubin, whose art I really loved. It was a more colorful and playful version of the Black Hammer. But unfortunately it felt a bit like a filler story. I think it was kind of a filler story. and yeah, not super bad, but just not up to the normal level of greatness that Black Hammer has achieved by now. And yeah, I think it's fair to say that it's one of the best books that is released right now. Next up, Normandy Gold, another book that I forgot about that I ordered it. It's by Hardcase Crime. It's an imprint of Titan Comics where they do crime stuff. And I've read a few number ones, and I always wanted to get the whole book. And I think one I recently got, but I don't know where it is. However, they're all pretty good. The quality is really impressive. It's written by Megan Abbott and Alison Galen. Artwork by Steve Scott. I guess they're all British. I'm not sure. At least I don't know them. I never heard of any of those creators. The book is about two sisters. One sister's a cop, with the other one's a prostitute, and she gets abducted, probably, maybe even worse. And her sister tries to find out what happened to her. And it's really well written. It's a little bit, playing with the whole, tough woman in a tough man's world. You have to be a tough woman to survive. And everything, the whole setting is in the 70s, I think the New York of the 70s. And it's really cool if you dig those old 70s action films, or like crime films, not action, like crime thrillers. This is something for you. It's also like a little bit of erotica is going on if you're into this kind of stuff. I like it, I dig it. So yeah, it was a really good number one. Looking forward to the rest. Next up, a book by Black Mask, which normally Black Mask for me is like, it was too often a disappointment, so I pretty much skipped their latest number ones. But this one had such a beautiful cover, I just couldn't do it. I had to have it. And I also really like one of the how do you say, sentences they put on the back, but it's also a main sentence in the book. Don't overthink it, or you're overthinking it. And in fact, it is a very brainy story. She, the author, I think it's a she, Ryan K. Lindsay. Ryan sounds like a man. I don't know why I thought it's a woman. Probably because the main character is one. However, then he talks in the back of the book about his influences, which is Philip K. Dick, very much so. You can see it. It's a lot of jumping between realities, between how people perceive their surroundings, and what is real, what is not, is very vague. The drawings are pretty good. I really enjoyed it. Also the coloring. It's drawn by Semi Kivella, and the coloring is by Trayvon Farrell. Also really, really nice coloring. This is a nice page here. So yeah, it's weird sci-fi noir, I'd say. And if you're happy just to be thrilled and not necessarily understand why, then this is a book for you. It's definitely not meant to be understood within its first issue, I think. But it's thrilling. It was a fun read and has a great ending. So I'd say check it out. Alright, now on to one of my favorite series right now, which is a very weird little series by Aftershock. Yeah, we're moving on to Aftershock Comics. It's Eleanor and the Egret, which is yeah, it's just it's a weird art caper story, um, written by John Layman and drawn by Sam Keith, legendary artist of the Max, of some great Wolverine covers back in the 90s. Also, I think he did some work over at DC with Batman. I haven't checked those out, but I know that his style is very, very unique, and it's still very unique. It has evolved. Look at this double page here. It's so special. It's hard to describe. Well, the backgrounds are very very loose, almost no backgrounds at all, and the characters are very characteristic. And I really, really dig in. I'm sometimes I'm lost in some detail, some just how he renders a face, or he's doing some little detail. The way he's using a page, you know, how he's composing a page, is fantastic. It's so unique, and I enjoy this very much. But also the story by John Layman, who you might know from Chew. He's a writer of very, let's say, far out concepts. So in Chew you had like a cannibal detective, and here you have a girl and her bird, who can speak and do stuff, and they're a team who likes to. I'm not really sure what it's about yet, but I think it's about stealing art from a famous artist because this art doesn't belong to her. I might have spoiled something now. However, it's not so much about the story; it's about how it's told, and it's super funny and warm, and the characters are really really fun. It's just a fun book, and I urge you to check it out. It's not for everyone, I guess, but if you're into more quirky and unique comics, and you're fed up with the whole, you know, sci-fi / horror / noir genre mixes which are going on right now, this is a super unique and fun book. Yeah, by Aftershock. Aftershock is doing a lot of good books right now. One of those is Babyteeth. This is the #1 by the writer of the moment. It's by Donny Cates and drawn by Gary Brown. And I think not too much is spoiled if I say that it's about a mother and her child, and small spoiler alarm, this child is a very special one. It might be the Antichrist. So yeah, look at the art is serviceable. It's not super impressive, but it does a good job advancing the story. And how can you tell if a writer is really hot or really good if the story is super fluent? And this one is. It's quite thrilling. You just fly through it, and it was very enjoyable, I have to say. But yeah, it's another of those genre mix books, which I'm a little bit torn about. It's becoming the new superheroes. There are so many genre books right now, done in fantastic manner. They are really good, but they are not super surprising anymore. Everyone wants to top the next guy with another high concept fantasy sci-fi mix. Speaking of sci-fi, this is Walt Reader #2 and 3. I just finished them both, and I quite enjoyed them. They're by Jeff Loveness and Juan Doe, and I raved about the #1 because I mean, it's easy to rave about this kind of art. It's especially the coloring is so intense, you get sucked into the comic and can't leave it. The story, it's a slow build, I have to say. I'd wish we are now in issue number 3, and I'd wish, like with most books, that stories would be a little bit more condensed, and that we wouldn't have to wait, half a year to finish a short story. If you would write this up as a prose story, it would be probably like, I don't know, 15 pages in the end. But yeah, this is not especially, it's not a negative feedback towards Walt reader per se, but towards most comics nowadays. It's still really good. I enjoy it. And if you like sci-fi with the more human touch, this might be for you. Another sci-fi book by Image. It's by Dustin Weaver. I can't remember where. I know the name, but I don't know where I know it from. It's Dustin Weaver's Peckless. It's a one-man anthology. He's doing, I don't know, I was a bit surprised. I mean, I ordered it, so it worked, but for someone who's not super famous to do an anthology book, it's ambitious. It's also $6, which is also ambitious. And I have to say, it wasn't a letdown. The art is really, really good. But you can see he's not a veteran storyteller. And he makes the stuff up while he's doing it in a way, which is not bad at all. And it was a fun read, but I was a bit frustrated. I paid $6, and there is one finished story in here which was so weird that it felt more like a bonus story. And I think if you start your anthology, you should have like one strong, concise little story in it, your best short story that you can do. And yeah, I can't really recommend it, though I enjoyed it. And I don't know, maybe I will give number 2 another shot, maybe not, I'm not sure. Okay, let's move on to Image Comics. And we'll start with a gigantic letdown, which is Crosswind number 1. It's by Gail Simone and, I don't know, an artist. Oh, it's interesting. He's called an illustrator. Okay, this is a good fit because I just wanted to say he's just not a penciler. It's so heavily photo-referenced art. I don't know, some people don't mind, it's part of the Greg Land school of comic drawing, but some things, like this here, which is obviously just a photo, which is filtered in Photoshop. You can use those, paint filters or whatever. So yeah, I was so irritated by the art, and the story also. I was so surprised. This is the first book by Gail Simone with Image Comics, and I would have expected it to be like a really interesting novel concept, whatever. It's a body switch story with really subpar art, with one of the most hideous covers, and I'm really disappointed. I really liked the Simone book she did for Vertigo recently. I forgot the name. I read the first volume and loved it. Let me look at my Vertigo shelf. Maybe I will find it right away. No, but I don't. I think I gave it to someone because I liked it so much. So I had high expectations, maybe too high ones. This is one of the worst books that I've read out of this bunch. Next up, we have Royal City. I read number 2 to 4, so I had to catch up a bit on Royal City, and it's good. I loved the first issue. It was very strong. I still enjoy those issues, but I feel like I want to support the Jeff Lemire, who's doing both writing and penciling on those two, and coloring probably too, because it's those Jeff Lemire colors. And it's really, I really like the art. I like everything about it, but it just doesn't feel like a monthly book necessarily. I think it will read much better as a collected edition. Having said that, I will continue to get it monthly just because it's a non-genre book. Well, mostly. Uh, there is some mystery going on, but most of it's just like a family story. It's a story about broken persons who have to come to, have to deal with their issues and have to accept that life is not what they expected it to be. And I really enjoy this in comic form because, normally this used to be stuff released by Fantagraphics or Drawing Quarterly, and I love that Image is giving Jeff Lemire this forum, so I will support it. And if you haven't checked it out, I will suggest that you wait for the first trade. It will have the first 5 issues for $10, so just get it, and it's very, very good. If you like Jeff Lemire, this is probably up there with some of his best work, I'd say, and more like in the tradition of his indie work, and not so much the genre stuff he's doing. Okay, next up is Dynamite and Valiant, which a lot of Valiant fans hate Dynamite because they got the licenses for the Gold Key characters who used to be a part of the Valiant universe, Solar, Turok, Magnus, and so on. And they've already relaunched the whole Gold Key, I don't know how they called it, Dark Key universe a few years back. I'm not sure if it's still, if those new Gold Key books are still part of, if this is a continuity thing or if this is a completely new relaunch. However, I like the Survelliance number 0, and number 1 was decent. It's basically about all the heroes, Magnus, Turok, Solar, and Dr. Spectre, coming together, introducing them to new readership, and of course they have to fight some evil that is coming up. But I'd say this is, you can just ignore it, because the real gem of the whole endeavor for me is Magnus, which is also like my book of the month, if you want. It was a fantastic read. It's written by Kyle Higgins and drawn by Jorge Fornes. Kyle Higgins, I know the name. I know he did Horizon, I think it was called, the series for Image. I have the paperback but not read yet, but I will now, because this has impressed me a lot. It's wow, if I would show you those pages, you might already think of the book that I want to cite here. You can see a robot and you can see a 9-panel grid, so yes, it is very close to The Vision by Tom King and Gabriel Walter, but it tells, it's in the same playground, but it tells a different story. If you're into AI, you have to get this, because it's a psychological journey into the minds of AIs, and so was the Vision. But this year takes a different path in that the main character is not a robot or an AI, but a normal person. Let's say robot psychologist. And when the robots or the AIs have problems, they are brought to her, and she believes that it's easier to talk with them than to reprogram them. Reminded me a little bit of, if you have seen Westworld, the debrief sessions that they have in Westworld when they talk with Westworld AI slash robots and ask them about their feelings and stuff like that. So this is what she's doing, and the story is super well told. I love the art, I love the coloring, and I'm super hooked. I can't wait for number 2. It was it was a super well made book, and I can't believe that it's a Dynamite book and that it's you know, an intellectual property book. I think they have to release some books every few years to keep the rights to them. So I wasn't expecting super much of it, and I got a real gem here. I really urge you to check it out. Magnus by Dynamite. Next up we have Valiant. So Valiant relaunched in 2012 without those gold key heroes, and one of the original Valiant heroes was Rai, the guy from the future, the samurai from the future. And I really liked the series by Matt Kindt, and I was expecting this to be somehow part of it, and well, it's more of an excuse to retell. It's in the title, I have to give them that they don't lie about it. The history of the Valiant universe. Rai, the history of the Valiant universe. But it has basically nothing to do with Rai. It's just like the first few pages, they break into some depot and they find a book, and then one guy starts to tell Rai the whole story of the Valiant universe. But it's not the Valiant universe, it's just the story of what happened since the relaunch in 2012 until now. This would have been a nice freebie for the free comic book day, but to charge people $4 for basically a non-story, it's really like, it's all recap, without any kind of story, rhythm, whatever. This, I don't know, I felt kind of betrayed by it, and it's a rare thing with Valiant, because I think they're releasing really good product, but this is shit. Not shit, it's just like a promotion for their books. But okay, if you don't know anything about Valiant, you can buy it. Maybe it helps, or you just look it up on the net, and there are probably a few videos explaining the history of modern Valiant on YouTube. Secret Weapons number 1 was really good, by Eric Heiserer and Roald Allen, colors by Patricia Martin, and this was a really good book. Eric Heiserer is the writer of what's the film called? The sci-fi film, which I really enjoyed. They probably have it somewhere here. No. Well, you probably know it. It's not Contact, but a very similar one, which was just released, I think, 1.5 years ago. Whatever. He's a great screenwriter, and this is his comic debut, and you couldn't tell it if you would know it, because it has not the perfect pacing, but a pretty good pacing, and some really very visual ideas, which is rare, you know, but maybe because he's coming from filmmaking and not from prose. But when you get like those new writers breaking into comics, they tend to do a lot of dialogues and, you know, storytelling through telling rather than showing. And not with this guy, Eric Heiser. He uses a lot of interesting visual devices to tell his story, and it's the story about Scythes, which are Valiant's mutants, who got a bit neglected because they have like stupid powers. One can talk to birds, one can, you know, it's like really stupid superpowers, which are kind of useless, but combined and with a lot of heart, of course, they can become a team. And Livewire, who is Valiant's female powerhouse, she assembles this team, or she saves them from a threat that is coming after them. So we get to know one after another, and they're really fun characters. We only have like the first two in this first issue, but they're really cool. You can see that every page has a lot of panels, and also like the lettering is very small. I think this would work much nicer in an oversized format, and I hope Valiant will go for it when the miniseries is finished. It's a recommendation for me. Next up, a few DC books. First is Shade, The Changing Girl, which is still one of my favorite books. But I will always with a disclaimer: it's something for me. I don't know if it's something for you. It's like a poem. Every issue is like a poem. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh come on, I get it. It's a nice escapist break for one issue, but couldn't we like get a little bit more of story? But somehow every issue pulls me in, so it works. Could it have a bit more story to pull in other people who are not as poetic as me? Maybe, but it's also a very unique book, and I applaud DC for daring to publish it, because I can't imagine that they're selling a lot of those. This will also make a really nice collection, I think, for you know, I would say typical Vertigo people, romantics, poetics, people who are into weird stuff. This is for you, Shape the Changing Girl. Alright, next up, wow, this is a very heavy break. Next up is Dark Days, The Forge, a new DC pre-event book. It's not the main event. The main event is Metal. This is the event before the event. So already this description should be a loud warning that this is a money grab, basically, with really ugly art. There are here, I don't know who's done what, but Snyder, Tiny and the Fourth, Jim Lee, Kubert, Romita Jr., Williams, Jensen, Mickey, and Sinclair. So a lot of people have worked on this book, probably, you know, in their spare time, everyone doing like 2 pages here and there. I didn't like it. It didn't feel cohesive at all. I read it yesterday and I already forgot what it was about. Only that, you know, some big mysterious threat is coming, and different heroes of the Justice League are becoming aware of it. And yeah, I don't know. It's a $5 book, which is shit. Alright, and the last book that I will talk about is Detective Comics, which I catched up. I'm way behind with my Rebirth reading. I read, I think, 9 Detective Comics in a row, and those are the last 3. I have to say the art before those three was a bit dry, a bit overlong. It helps that it's getting released every 2 weeks, but you still don't have to make 6 chapters out of a thin story. But they're back on track. There is this one shot with spoiler, which was decent. I still don't really understand the character, or I do understand her, but I don't get what's so special about her. But it was a fun book. But this new arc, Intelligence, part 1 and 2, is really, really nice. I enjoyed this a lot. It's, I would say, artificial intelligence meets magic. Zatanna is part of it. I love Zatanna. And yeah, it's just a fun read, very well told. The art it's DC's house style art, pretty dark, a lot of double pages, you know, you have to, like here, so it's one big page which needs to get deciphered, and yeah, it's very enjoyable, and they tackle the whole artificial intelligence thing in through a superhero story, and they have their own Ultron going on here. It's a really good book. What can I say? Just check it out. Just sample it. It's only $3 each. So those are the first 2 parts, and I'm eager for more. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, I won't promise, like I told you, I won't promise anything, but I think I'm back into more comics. I'm eager to read more, so I guess there will be more videos soon. Until then, have a nice weekend. Bye bye.